So I think we'll make a start, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chris Underhill, and I'm the first or founding chair of the organization, and am now the first ambassador to the organization. So it's a great honor to be with you today. We celebrate our 10th anniversary, and we'll be holding 6 hour-long webinars entitled Carers, the Big Conversation, to raise the profile of family carers globally. Our webinars will provide a platform for practitioners, policymakers, and academics who have lived experience of caring alongside their professional insights. We will also hear from family carers living in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh who are taking part in our projects. We expect to ignite conversations amongst individuals, charities, companies, policymakers, and academics on how they can include family carers in their own spheres of work and geographical locations, thereby increasing the numbers of those already able to commit to carers. The aim of our webinars is to encourage people to have a conversation about caring. Each webinar will have a specific focus. And this webinar, our first, kicking off as it happens during Carers Week in the UK, is about being a carer in all its forms. And so we are so pleased to welcome James, Emilie, and Parvathi from India, and of course our founder, Anil. We want to open the lid on the topic of caring and carers. Just to give you a little bit of background to the individuals that we're going to be meeting. Anil founded Carers Worldwide 10 years ago as a coming together of both his professional and personal experiences of caring. Based in the UK now, he travels frequently to India, Nepal, and Bangladesh to support Carers Worldwide's partners organization and to meet with and learn from carers. Emilie Weight, in charge of sustainability and patient caregivers associations for Merck, and she writes to us, "I am the lucky mother of 2 teenagers, one of whom is Michael, who is 19 years old and has Fragile X syndrome. I have been involved since 2017 in the Embracing Carers initiative, and I became the Caregivers Employee Resource Group lead for Merck right after my TED Talk entitled 3 Things I Have Learned Thanks to My Mentally Disabled Son." Welcome, Emilie. James Townsend originally trained as a maths teacher and worked in various education charities. His own family's experience of caring prompted James to co-found Mobilise, a startup dedicated to supporting unpaid carers online. Mobilise is now working with over 20 local authorities in the UK, helping them to identify and support unpaid carers at scale. We will be reviewing a short film of Parvathi from South India, who cares for her disabled son. And we have Michelle and Ruth behind the scenes, looking after the technical and continuity functions of this particular day. By all means, do keep your videos on if you have the bandwidth, and kindly put questions in the chat to everyone. Do by all means enable live transcript, which is at the bottom of the screen, next to the record and reactions buttons. And all I have to say now is that we are going to sit back and enjoy the conversation. Anil, it's my great pleasure to hand the microphone to you and to your guests. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that very warm welcome and setting the context of the webinar series. Deeply, deeply appreciated. May I join with you in welcoming our 2 eminent guests, Emilie as well as James, and of course, colleagues from India, UK, and our own trustee board from India as well as UK. and all the partner organizations and carers and other supporters of carers worldwide. In my opinion, at this virtual event, at least 25% of you have been currently a caregiver or receiving a care. We all know someone either personally, socially, professionally who is a carer. The contributions carers make, not just monetarily, socially, but also emotionally, are invaluable. Carers are often not recognized their vital role, referred to as the invisible backbone of our healthcare system. On behalf of carers worldwide, I'm here to say that they must no longer be invisible. Around the world and within individual countries, carers from different backgrounds, different age demographics, and different economic and social situation, there is no one size fits all. Despite this diversity, through our international work, we have recognized that carers' issues and needs are similar. I would like to discuss this in more depth. My guest today, Emilie Weight from Merck Group and James Townsend from Mobilise. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time and being with us and sharing your experience of being a carer or supporting people who are caring them. So I will be exploring with each of you. Can you just share what does it mean to being a carer, Emilie?
Yes.
First to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Anil, for this opportunity. For me, being a carer is first of all a responsibility, because it requires many actions, decision-making, and prioritization in life. However, I have to admit that thanks to my son, whom I'm caring for, I also realize how lucky I am to care for someone so special. So I would say that being a carer changed my life for the best, helping me realize what really matters. And that's a very important thing in life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emilie. If I can come to James, asking the same question, what does it mean to be a carer for you, James?
Thank you, Anil, and thank you for the opportunity to join you. My mother was very excited to know that I was talking to a global audience today, which is my first time. So it's wonderful to be talking with people around the world. And I think it's a really interesting question. What does it mean to be a carer? Because certainly in my experience, there was never one moment where I woke up and thought, I know, in the UK's case, under the Care Act 2014, I now define myself as a carer. Of course, that's nonsense. But actually, this is something that happens over a period of time. And we at Mobilise like to think of people with a caring role to recognize that it doesn't necessarily fully define who you are. As Emilie says, it can be a really life-enhancing role and part of your life as well. But I'd also draw on the fact that, it really matters that this is something that we all do. Many people on the call today will be familiar with Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, and her line. She was asked, when did human civilization begin? And she pointed to a femur that had been a thigh bone that had been broken and then had healed. And she said, well, here's evidence that somebody was cared for. They'd broken their leg, and then they had been cared for while that leg healed. And that for me is really important, because caring is something that will touch all of our lives in one way or another. And caring is central to what it is to be human. And that role may change through our lives, and it may have greater or lesser intensity and may mean different things. But it's really important to note that this is something common to all humanity. And sometimes I think there's a danger that we can use language that others carers that says you need to identify as a carer and you're different to the rest of us. And actually, we need to see it more as a phase of life and an absolutely standard thing, and therefore something that we should all be involved in. Even if we individually might not be caring at that moment, it's something that we're invested in because we will all be involved in some way.
Great, James. Thank you so much to both of you. It resonates so much with the work what we are doing with the family carers in low and middle income countries. Many carers, like Emilie, as she said, that they are very proud to be caring for a loved one, but at the same time, they are having their own challenges and difficulties. And you're absolutely right, James, in terms of during our lifetime, all of us will become either a carer or someone will be caring us. It doesn't discriminate whether you are living in a rich country or developing countries. So it affects each one of us. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and views on what it means to being a carer. So I would like to move on to the next set of questions and want to explore a little bit more. Is I will go to Emilie again. What are some of the impacts of caring had on you, Emilie, caring for your teenage son?
Yeah, being a carer has many impacts, I believe, in life, especially because it's a huge engagement. I would touch on two main impacts because I will not be able to cover all. So I would say in the negative side of the impact, this is something we need to be very careful of. It's the impact on caregivers' health. It is well known that caregivers take more care about the person they are supporting health than their own health. And this can lead to very dramatic situations where the caregivers will ignore signs of being tired or signs of potential illness, sometimes some chronic illness that could be very damageable for the lives. And so I learned with time to listen to myself. I always take the image of when you are in an airplane and they say that if something happens, you need to put the mask on your face before putting the mask on the face of the person you're with. And I think this is very important for caregivers to realize that there is a potential heavy impact on their health and they should take care of their health first to be able to cope with the rest. On the positive side, I'd say one of the major impacts I noticed in my life is that being a caregiver helped me being in the mindfulness, getting real. And that has a huge impact on my day-to-day life because I learned to be happy about what I have and to live in present time. And it has no price.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If I can ask you the same questions to James, from your point of view, James, what are some of the impacts of caring?
Thanks, Anil, and thanks, Emilie, because you've said it already, a couple of the things that we see with the carers we support and mobilise all the time, that sense of promoting someone else's health over your own and all of the impacts that come with that. I think the only things that I would add to that are pieces around economic life and isolation. So it can be a real challenge, particularly in a traditional working pattern of working 9 to 5 from a particular location. It can be a real challenge to balance that with responsibilities of a caring role. And so there are things that we can do, and I hope we'll be able to come on to them to make that easier, because economic life is obviously a key thing financially in terms of the money being able to come into the household. but it also has an impact on social life. So going out to work, having a real sense of a purpose and identity beyond a caring role is also a really important part of this. So making sure that employment is something that can be compatible with a caring role, or finding ways to make that possible where it is, but also making sure that we create opportunities for people to really have a thriving social life around their caring role. We know that that is so important to people when you give them the choice. And so that's why I think things like finding respite and finding other ways to open that up can make a huge difference.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you. And I love the analogy you used, Emilie, about help yourself before helping others. So it is so powerful. If carers are well and healthy, the quality of care will be better. That is what we were able to observe even in our work. And you talked about the mindfulness, how important it is to take care of oneself. Of course, James, I couldn't agree more. It is to balance family life, work life, social life, and how important it is to have that economic opportunities to participate in that. Really, absolutely. Even in our own work, where we started collecting the data last 10 years, 86% of carers have expressed anxiety and depression, the impact of caring having on them. And you talked about, James, the economic. 9 out of 10 carers are expressed that significant burden on their family income because they are unable to go to work. And many of them have experienced isolation, lonely, and unable to have that social life we're talking about. So there are so many similarities out there. Unfortunately, in the countries where we are working, we are the only organization trying to highlight and do something about it. There is no support system from the state or national government. We are hoping to change that system. So thank you for both of you on that. Can you just throw a light on, James, from your point of view, what do you think carers need? What support carers need?
Well, I think there's, just if I could come back to your point very briefly, Anil, on the economic case, when we're thinking about the support that is available, there's a compassionate and empathetic case that we need to make to support carers, but we mustn't also ignore the fact that if people are dropping out of the workforce to be caring, that has an impact on the wider economy. And that's why state involvement can be really key. And you ask, what can we do? Well, my experience is here in the United Kingdom, and I'd be really interested to know how that relates to other experiences around the world. From our perspective, there are some quick wins here, actually. So supporting carers can be really complex, really difficult, and we need to understand the nuances and subtlety of it. But there's a starting point which could make a huge difference and shouldn't be that difficult. And I mean, that's what we're working on. So making sure that information is accessible. Some of the it is amazing how much time carers are spending Googling things that should be fairly straightforward to find out. And if carers are already struggling with the many different challenges they face, we could make that easier. And it wouldn't require a new tax on health and social care levy or anything like that. It could be straightforward. Similarly, the way we do paperwork, again, just thinking about this more carefully, we wouldn't be spending more money as a society. We would be saving money, doing it more efficiently if we didn't expect carers to fill out all of those forms. Don't get me wrong. Fixing those won't transform people's lives, but hey, let's not make it harder than it needs to be. The second piece, from my perspective, is emotional support. And I think that's really recognizing that there will be no quick, clean fix to the whole of a carer's challenges, but recognizing that we can do things to help people on that emotional journey. particularly, for example, if you're caring for a parent, that shift in relationship, and very possibly considering end-of-life developments, which may be some way off, but because it feels quite real in the day-to-day, that has a significant impact on the psychology of a carer. So emotional interventions, if nothing else, to reassure people that they are not alone, that it's not them who is not a very good carer, what they're trying to do is difficult, and that other people are struggling, they're not alone. That makes a real difference. And then the third suggestion I'd make is data-led interventions. So often we're trying to find solutions, but we don't have any evidence about what is going to work and what carers really need. Where we can find some really strong data, and I know Emilie and her colleagues at Merck have been doing fantastic work to bring together the intelligence that we have, particularly across Europe, but across the world more generally. What are the interventions that are going to make a difference, that are really needed by carers? When we have that data, not only can we be more confident that they're going to be effective, but it's much easier to persuade people to pay for it if we've got that data behind it. And that starts to create a chain reaction that can make a real difference to carers' lives.
Wonderful, James. Thank you. Thank you so much, making a very compelling argument what support do carers need. If I can come back to you, Emilie, from your point of view, what do you think carers do need the support?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say about what you and James said, that I could not agree more on the economical impact caring has about caregivers and on society. And to add to what carers needs, I would say that the main point for me is that I strongly believe that carers need recognition. That's the first thing carers need. Recognition of their roles within the society, on top of the help they are bringing to people. It's not only the recognition of them being nice because they take care of health issue or autonomy issue in society. It's also the recognition of what their role bring them as strengths. Being a caregiver, you learn how to be organized, how to prioritize things, how to cope with many different activities, many different players, because you have to interact and coordinate things among public sector, private sector, healthcare providers, family members, professional players, all this large ecosystem. And you're the chief of staff of all this. So in a sense, you are an entrepreneur in a strange world where the issues are very sensitive. So you need to have emotional also control over your feeling. And all those strengths need to be recognized by society, and you need to be valued for that in your private life, in your personal life, but also in your professional life. And this may be a solution for the economical bargain and economical issue of caregivers. And I also think that knowing that we have strengths, nevertheless, we are not heroes. And I agree with James on the fact that we really need caregiver, really need respite, because there is an unbearable burden for caregivers or for carers. It's the mental load. And it's very important that society makes things easier. I could not focus more on that, and James said too, society need to make things easier for carers to avoid their burnout. There's a very high risk for carers burnout. We need to be careful about this.
Just I want to say huge thanks to both of you for making a very compelling case. What support do carers need? In our own work, I would say, James, how important it is the data-led intervention. In fact, we are making a case, economic argument, how much carers have the experience and the skills and they're unable to use. If we are able to provide the support to carers, they can do that. In fact, in India, we are making yet another advocacy issue is that why don't you consider caregiving itself as a job and provide the support, financial support to the carers, high dependency care as well. Absolutely, Emilie, I couldn't agree more. The first and foremost is the recognition of the critical role, vital role carers are playing. It is so important to recognize and make them carers feel good about what they're doing. Sometimes, as I said, they are among us, but they are invisible, they are hidden. Even just asking a simple questions, how are you? Do you need any help? That goes a long way, but we fail to. And the third most important aspect is, of course, James has talked about better information, paperwork and all. Unfortunately, in the countries where we're working, we are starting a clean sheet of paper. We have a long way to go. That is why Carers Worldwide has initiated this global conversation on carers, how we could connect carers globally and increase the profile of family carers. So thank you to both of you. And I just would like to, we got another 5-6 minutes before we watch a recorded video message from carer from India. When we met Emilie and James, we discussed about commit to carers and what can the audience on this virtual platform can do. Of course, as Carers Worldwide, we are committed to carers and we want others to commit as well. So what action can attendees or participants take in their own sphere? So it is about the call to action. Emilie, if I start with you, what can participants do? One or two things for carers?
Yeah, I would say that the first thing would be what James said, we can all be carers one day. We will maybe all be carers one day. So I would say the first action will be to get ready. And getting ready could be at different stage. For example, when you're not already a caregiver or carer, you can get ready to be one. And get ready to be one means get sensitive about the issue of carers, get supportive for other carers. If you are already a carer, you need also to get ready. You need to get ready to rest, get ready to listen to yourself, get ready to get to the next stage, because being a carer is not something fixed. It always evolves with life. So things can get worse, things can get better. The person you care for can die, and then you have to reinvent yourself. So not being a caregiver yet, or being a caregiver, you need to get ready for the next step. So I would say that my call for action will be get ready. Also as society need to get ready, because we are already, I know the number in France, I had forget the number worldwide, but in France it's 11 million. We are 11 million carers in France. Worldwide, it must be, it's 1 out of 6, I think, the proportion. But this is only today. The population is getting older. The issue of autonomy is getting more and more critical with chronic disease and older generations. So as society also, we need to get ready for the next stage where carers will be an even more essential pillar of our society. My call for action is #GetReady.
Thank you, Emily. If I can ask you, what your message for call to action, James?
Well, Anil,
what action needs to happen?
It sounds like the first thing that we need to do is get some T-shirts printed with "Get Ready" on the front. I'm a big fan of those things that we can do that don't cost any money that could happen this afternoon. And so for me, one of the things that we could be doing is for every senior leadership team, every board in every organization represented on the call here, be you an organization supporting carers, in our case, local government in the UK, or any of the agencies involved in this, or indeed employers, have a think, just a thought exercise. What would need to happen if everybody in the organization had a caring role? What would be the steps that we would need to take to keep our operation on the road in terms of people that we employ and giving them the flexibility that they need in their employment, but also our service users or our customers or the people that we're working with, assuming that all of them had some sort of caring role, how would we need to reshape what we do and how we work to make sure it works for those carers? I mean, a classic example for us is we get a huge number of people, about sometimes between 60 and 70% of people, coming to us outside working hours, in the evenings, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, or at weekends, because that's when they're starting to engage with their the sort of the bits around their caring role that work for that time. And yet so many services and opportunities are only open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or whatever it might be in your country. So just thinking quite radically about how we could reshape the way we work, assuming that everybody has a caring role, could make a huge step forward, and it wouldn't cost us any money at all.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing what everybody can do about the call to action for carers. I love that, to get ready, and what can employers or family members, everybody can do that. So thank you so much for your valuable insights and time, Emily and James. We touched upon, talked about so many things, briefly about you shared about what it means to be being a carer, how proud many carers are, means most of the carers are caring for someone they love dearly, and the impact of caring having on their own life, and how important it is to recognize and to start providing the support to address their own issues and challenges, and also what action needed to happen as an individual or a service providers or a government or employers. I cannot thank both of you sharing your experiences, insights, and thoughts and views with us. So now I would like to introduce you to Parvathi, a carer from South India. She is from Karnataka state, Koppal district, and our partner organization Samarthya has been helping her and provided the support to her for over the last 10 years. She started as a carer and then becoming president of Samarthya organization. So she is here today, and thank you, Parvathi, for taking your time to join us and give us your perspective. And after the video, and Chris will be coming back and facilitating the question and answer session. So thank you so much. Michelle, if you don't mind playing the video.
ಪಾರ್ವತಮ್ಮ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, ಯುವರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್, ವಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಎ ಕೇರರ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಾಗಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ?
ದೇವರ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ವರ, ಬಯಸದೆ ಬಂದ ಭಾಗ್ಯ. ಅಂಗವಿಕಲ ಮಗನನ್ನು ನೋಡಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಮನೆಯ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಯನ್ನು ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಮತ್ತು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಾಗಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನನಗೆ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ.
She got a child is boon given by God. She could not expect, but it happened. She have been managing caring role along with family responsibilities, including livelihood. So she is proud to be a carer. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೇರಿಂಗ್? ಅಂದರೆ ಆರೈಕೆ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಿದೆ?
ನನ್ನ ಗಂಡ ತೀರಿಕೊಂಡರು. ನನಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಅಂಗವಿಕಲ ಎಂದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಯಿತು. ನನಗೆ ಅಂಗವಿಕಲ ಮಗನನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟಿಕೊಂಡು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಎಂಬುದು ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಮಗನನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸಲು ದುಡ್ಡು ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಗಂಡ ಮಾಡಿದ ಸಾಲವನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ತೀರಿಸುವುದು ಎಂಬುದು ಚಿಂತೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಅಂಗವಿಕಲ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಭಾಳ ನೋವನ್ನು ಅನುಭವಿಸಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಮಾನಸಿಕವಾಗಿ ಕುಗ್ಗಿ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನನ್ನ ಜೀವನ ನಡೆಸುವುದು ಭಾಳ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ನನ್ನ ಮಗನನ್ನು ಕರೆಕೊಂಡು ಮದುವೆಗೆ, ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ನಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋಗಲು ಆಗುತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಕುಟುಂಬದವರು ನನ್ನ ಸೇರ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ.
When she lost her husband, she came to know about her son's disability. During this period, she struggled and did not have any hope of leading life. She worried about her child's future, also worried about repayment of her husband's debt. That time no one supported to her and she was depressed. She could not able to attend any events because of disability of the child. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, ಯುವರ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ವಾಟ್ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಡು ಕೇರರ್ಸ್ ನೀಡ್? ಅಂದರೆ ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ಬೆಂಬಲ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತದೆ?
ಆರೈಕೆದಾರ ಸೇವೆಯನ್ನು ಗುರುತಿಸಬೇಕು. ಡಿಕೇರ್ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಬೇಕು. ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆಗೆ ಕರೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಲು ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಬಸ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರ ಜೀವನ ಉಪಯೋಗಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಸಹಾಯಧನ ಬೇಕು. ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ವೈದ್ಯಕೀಯ ನೆರವು ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತದೆ.
The carers need recognition of their vital role, need daycare center for their PWDs, need bus pass transport facility to take their PWDs to hospital by traveling, need to financial assistance for livelihood activities. Thank you. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, ಯುವರ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ವಾಟ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್? ಅಂದರೆ ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಏನು ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಆಗಬೇಕು?
ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಮೀಸಲಾತಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಗಾಗಿ ಕಾಯ್ದೆ ಕಾನೂನು ರೂಪಿಸಬೇಕು. ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಉದ್ಯೋಗಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಆದ್ಯತೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಅಂಗನವಾಡಿ ಸಹಾಯಕಿ ಕೆಲಸ, ಇನ್ನಿತರ ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ಆದ್ಯತೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಆರೈಕೆದಾರರಿಗೆ ತಿಂಗಳ ಮಾಸಾಸನ ಆಗಬೇಕು.
The carers need reservation in government schemes, for example poverty alleviation programs, self-employment loan schemes and etc. The government should make a law and act for carers empowerment. The government should provide priority in local government job like ICDS helpers, school cook and etc. The government should provide carers allowance under IPWD Act 2016. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಪಾರ್ವತಮ್ಮ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಮಯ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೋ ಮಚ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್.
ನಮಗೆ ಬೆಂಬಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಸಮೂಹ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗೆ, ಕೇರರ್ಸ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ವೈಡ್ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು.
Thank you so much, Prasad, for facilitating interviewing Parvathi and translating in English. Really appreciate that. Back to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anil. And what a remarkable film that was in terms of the questions being answered, but also the way in which the answers were so synergistic with the answers that we received from James and Emilie. And it makes me think that there is a kind of worldwide fellowship when it comes to this sort of thing. And I'm wondering whether the first question we shouldn't put to you, James and Emilie, and of course yourself, Anil, if you want to contribute, would be the whole question of the question of culture and carers. There seems to be more that it combines and brings carers together than there is that separates them, even if we are talking about very different countries and very different backgrounds. What do you have to say about that? Emilie, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, Thank you for the question, Chris. It was exactly what I was thinking when I listened to the testimony. It's very emotional because even though James, myself, we are fighting for the right for carers in our country, we have to be very humble when we see how other carers in other countries with other resources manage. So I have a lot of admiration for people who cope with this in different situations than ours in Europe or northern country.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I think you're right. There is something higher than culture or country situation in being a carer. And I would say maybe the assignment for carers worldwide is humanity. And this relies to what I meant when I said that I was very lucky to be supporting my mentally disabled son. And this is how I feel the same as this mother. It's because, sure, we are giving support, but we are receiving so much. And maybe this is the link between carers worldwide, and this is why we are doing it. It's the energy, the love, as the strength and the sense, the meaning of life that we receive by supporting the loved ones.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Emilie. James, any further comment on that?
Chris, I think the challenges of the last couple of years and the impact of the pandemic has brought home some of the realities about what is important for us all in different ways. And I'm very interested in Lorraine's comment in the chat box there, that there is a language of carers, which is not the verbal language we're using, but the concepts that we're all experiencing. And I think it's so interesting on our platform. We're entirely online, so we get people connecting from all different parts of the UK and around the world. Everybody's very welcome to join us at Mobilise. But one of the really striking things is that people in very different parts of the UK will connect over their experience, even if the background to that experience has been very different. So I think that is enormously powerful, and many of the people on our platform reflect, it means so much to me to know that other people are in a similar position to me, that it's not just me on my own, and that I can learn from those other people. So in that sense, I think caring is something that can happen around the world, and together we can do a great deal to support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Anil, do you have any comment, or shall I proceed with some further questions which I have here?
Just one point I would like to say, Chris, is as Parvathi has beautifully, eloquently said in her short video, that government should recognize the vital role they are playing. So whereas in the West, like where Emilie and James and we all are living here in the UK, there are support system is there, recognition is there, and but whereas in the countries where Parvathi is living in southern India, there is no recognition or support. So that is why Parvathi, in her own words, is saying that it's not just important to improve my own health and well-being, but important to recognize so many millions and millions of carers out there, how we could bring them, make them visible, and government should start thinking about providing the support to them.
Absolutely. Lorraine, you had a question earlier in the conversation, which related really to the impact of on carers, on their relationships, their own relationships. I wondered whether you would like to just, as it were, ask the question out front rather than
Yes, no problem.
And welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying it so far, by the way. So the question I have is that the impact of caring on the relationships of carers can be huge. Ultimately, this can lead to separation and divorce. I wonder if anyone here within this group today knows of any schemes aimed at this particular issue.
Yeah, so that's really relating to, isn't it, to the well-being of carers, as opposed to the people that they care for. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lorraine, for that. Yeah. Any thoughts about that, friends? It would be very nice to hear any thoughts, whether you know of schemes or whether this is something that we need to look at as we go forward, part of the action that we need to take. Where are you on this one, James?
Well, I think there's. I have made a note, and we'll ask colleagues who are scouring the different opportunities available, see if we know of anything in particular. I think Lorraine's question goes to the heart of all of this. So often we as carers look for something practical and tangible, which might feel like the burning issue for us, but underlying that is a much more complex, nuanced and subtle changing progression of relationships. And ultimately, this is all about relationships. So yes, sometimes it is the practical, tangible, burning platform that may help people recognize that they're a carer, access the support, start a conversation. But what we need to do is, as quickly as possible, address that particular issue and get down into the deeper issues around relationships, emotional development, and that progression there, which I think is exactly what I hope is exactly what Lorraine is kind of referring to there.
Absolutely. Any comment from you there, Emily? Or
no, I just want to add that sometime when the situation of becoming a carer arise, it asks a real question, essential question, and this is sometime when you realize that the value people are sharing are not the same. And I think what is really important once you are confronted to those questions, to be helped to answer them, not stay only the couple facing those questions, because there is a temporality. In a couple, we tend to do things together at the same time, but coping with the situation of being a caregiver, two people may have different temporality adapting to the new situation. So it's important to be helped by a third party to combine efforts and realize that we are all having our own way of coping with the situation. And if we are helped by a third party, we may take the time to see that it's just a question of temporality and not break the couple right away. Just wait for the other to adapt.
Got it. Thank you. Anil, I have people who are enthusiastically asking questions. So unless you have a comment there, I'm going to move on. Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine, Chris.
Great.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd love to come to Stephanie Oakes if you're there. Stephanie, you asked a very fundamental question in the chat, and I wondered whether you'd just like to read it to us or rephrase it to us.
Hi, yeah, it's about how you all draw strength for your caring role, how you able to carry on day to day, because obviously it's very tiring, there's lots of challenges. And yeah, for me, it's about love and duty and faith. And I just wanted to know how other people take that question.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephanie, for that. It was a very thoughtfully put question, I thought. And I'm just going to reread it, because you said here, where can we get strength from as carers? A lot of mine, you say, comes from love and duty for my family and also faith in God. Where do you get your strength to continue caring? So this is one I think we can direct at each of the individuals here, including Anil. Anil, would you like to answer this one first, since I've been brusque enough to overlook you in one or two of the questionings?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Stephanie. What a great question that.
It was.
I think the strength comes from the person you are caring for, the loved one you are caring for. In my case, it is our daughter. She is an inspiration and source of strength for us, and makes us get up in the morning and not just to look after yourself and look after your loved one, but also whatever experience you are able to share with others and learn from others, and asking help. We don't know everything, but we can ask for help where we could get some support from. So you beautifully said that the love and the duty, more than that, it is the responsibility of being a carer to look after your loved one. So I feel that is the source of strength for me. And then many carers have expressed the same, in spite of difficulties and challenges they are facing. Leading to the previous question, Chris, many carers in India, unfortunately, or in low and middle income countries, when woman has given birth to a disabled child, or lack of awareness, lack of information, or ignorance, quite often a husband has left. There is no support system. So for them, the source of strength is the child and the loved one. So they, as we have heard from Parvathi's story itself, she wanted to commit suicide, but she found a purpose, is her son, to care for him. Now he's a teenage boy, and what a journey she had over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, for taking that one. Emilie and James, I have a hand up, which means that there is another question, and I'm also keeping an eye on the time here. So would you mind if I went to another question, or did you have a remark that you wanted to make, Emilie, on that one, for example?
No, go ahead to another question. I think Anil answered perfectly well this one.
Okay.
Chris, if I could very briefly refer back to Emilie's hashtag Get Ready, because I think strength comes from a different place for each of us. So just taking that moment to think in preparation for a caring role, where am I going to get my strength from? And being deliberate about, sometimes being very frank with neighbors, friends, family, whoever it might be. This is what I need from you. And it might be emotional support or it might be practical. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. We had a very nice note from Sri Devi just coming through on the chat, which we very much appreciate. Thank you, Sri. Now, Kaleshi Dibi, you have put your hand up. Did you have a question you would like to ask? And it will be our last one, I think. Welcome, Kaleshi. At the moment, we have you on mute, Michelle.
Sorry, my question is around the strength that James talks about.
Right.
Is there any advice, Emilie and James, or anybody who's a carer on the panel, can give to carers around when enough is enough? Because often carers are not realistic about what more they can take on. And I know in UK's carers assessment, there is a question about, are you still able and willing to care? And it's where do people, at what point can people say, I can't sustain this anymore, I need help, or the person I'm caring for needs to go into a care home? What can help people muster that courage to say that? Because it's important for self-care.
Yes, of course. Thank you. This is obviously an important question. Unfortunately, we are heading, thank you, Kaleshi, very much, by the way. We are heading towards the end of our session here, so I'm going to need you to keep the remarks very brief, I'm afraid. Emilie?
Yeah, sorry, I can't answer this question. I think it's a very good question, but I'm afraid I would not be able to say that's enough for my son. So I'm not qualified to answer. I'm hoping someone will find the answer to this question.
The right solution. James, how about yourself?
I think carers are always, because we love the person that we're caring for, we want it to be perfect. And a big part of this is recognizing that in our caring role, actually, we may need to compromise on things and identifying what is it that is important and what actually are we happy to share. I think Kyra makes a point there about asking for help as a sign of strength and courage. Really important there. And this will not help any carers on the call, but wouldn't it be wonderful if those agencies that were doing carers assessments, as the question was put, could find ways of asking that question that got the honest answer, rather than creating a sort of a combative conversation that makes people feel worse if they're not able to care. I think if we radically rethink the way we have those conversations, both individually and as a society, we could make that process much easier for carers.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, James. As we finish this session now, first of all, I think we really want to be able to give a very warm vote of thanks to you, James, you, Emilie, and you, Anil. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely to have you with us. And you know, you've done exactly what we hoped you would do, is you've ignited and initiated this big conversation that we're looking for at Carers Worldwide over the next few months. We have another webinar coming up reasonably soon, and I thought that I ought to draw that to your attention. Anil, can you remember the date offhand when it is? The next webinar?
19th of July. 19th of July, Chris.
There we are, that's perfect. So put that in your diary, 19th of July. I can assure you that the conversation will be as interesting, although a little different, to this one. And I think you'll enjoy it. And so it'd be very important for you to attend. A couple of things that came to my mind is the way in which, of course, carers need to look after themselves. And a number of you have made reference to this in a number of different ways. Really important, I think. The importance of economic life, as James was iterating at one point, partly, I think, so as to be able to at least support themselves for a social life, to reduce loneliness and all of that, which many carers do feel in many societies. And therefore, we are talking about, once again, the importance of emotional support. Finally, and not least, we need to make that clarion call today about the universal nature of caring. Get ready. Very important, absolutely. Let us commit to carers. And now it all remains for me to do is to say thank you for attending and look forward to seeing you once again on the 19th of July. Do take care and many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.